Despite what the Jurassic World movies would have you believe, dinosaurs are still cool. Otherwise, those movies wouldn't be a billion-dollar franchise, even if the sequels are creatively bankrupt exercises in diminishing returns. Thankfully, we're kickstarting this year's interview marathon with an author who knows how to make dinosaurs scary again. Buckle up for an excellent episode.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Hey, welcome back to The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, creative writing tips, and especially this month, author interviews. I've got a great interview lined up for everybody, but I've got some announcements before we kick things off, starting with this month's Patreon content. All 4 of this month's episodes are featured right now. You can find the unedited versions, and the subscription-only runs for $1 a month. Now, if you bump up to the novelist tier, which runs you $5 per month, you get access to those videos plus early access to my Finding Fiction video essay on the film Lucky Number 11. Second, I finally heard back on whether or not I'll be at the Visalia Books and Brews event in Visalia, California, and the answer is a big, fat, whopping yes! That event will be held on Saturday, May 16th from 11 a.m. until about 4 p.m. It does require you to be a legal adult, but if you're interested, the link to buy tickets is located down in the video description. I will also be at Free Comic Book Day down at DJ's Collectibles in downtown Hanford on May 2nd. That one you don't have to be an adult for. Lastly, I have a different kind of event in 2 weeks on Saturday, April 18th. This is a local open mic poetry reading event put on by the Hanford Library from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, I'll be there reading some original works from my ebook, The Lover, the Fighter, and the Philosopher. I connected with my first guest, Lindsay Kinsella, through Facebook. There aren't too many authors I connect with there, but it's been cool to follow his work. Lindsay is from Scotland, and I've loved his frequent Jurassic Park and other dinosaur-themed memes. So please join me in welcoming Scottish sci-fi and horror writer, Lindsay Kinsella. Lindsay, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. Tell me about what it is that you write.
Well, thank you for having me, firstly. It's good to be here. I write, to be honest, quite an eclectic selection of genres. I've done sci-fi, I've done fantasy. At the time of recording, I'm about to release my first horror, which I think by the time it goes out, that will now be out. It comes out the end of February. And yeah, I tend to have a focus on wildlife, quite often prehistoric wildlife, with a bit of an angle on sort of semi-educational content of, learning about dinosaurs and natural history.
I love that. It's so cool. Like, I grew up loving dinosaurs, so this is great. I'm stoked to see what you've come up with. So how did you get into writing? Was this a recent interest, or you woke up one day and you're like, I need to write a book about dinosaurs?
I think it was sort of a little bit of both. It's always been there. I liked creative writing when I was young, when I was at school, but never took it seriously, really. It was always just kind of in the background for me. And then it was COVID. We were all on lockdown, and life was very busy, and then all of a sudden it wasn't, and suddenly I had sort of free time, and it was about the house for nothing to do, and I just kind of thought, let's do it, let's go for it. And it just kind of sprang from there. And then, of course, life got busy again after COVID, and now it's more busy because I write too. So it's compounded now.
That's really cool about having that interest and having that desire to write, what are some of your inspirations as a writer? Obviously, dinosaurs seems to be a crucial key theme for you, but what other elements do you draw from?
I think I have, and it's probably reflected in the fact that I write so many different genres. I think I have a really eclectic spread of influences. Um, the two that I always think about as being in big influences are Douglas Adams, which is obviously this sort of light-hearted, whimsical comedy, and then also Quentin Tarantino movies, which is hard to imagine two different influences. And I do. I think I draw from so many different places, and I like to think that gives my books a sort of particular flavour. Maybe it just makes them disjointed. I don't know. I think that's for readers to decide. But yeah, and I think for particular books, there are obviously more specific influences taken. You know, the fantasy novel that I wrote had a lot of, strangely, sort of Alice in Wonderland inspiration in terms of the sort of vibes that I was going for. And the horror that I'm about to release, there was certainly some influence from The Thing in there. So, yeah, kind of a bit of a scattergun all over the place.
You know, taking on a new genre always takes, it brings with it some new challenges. So that kind of leads me into my next question. What are some of the biggest challenges that you have encountered in the development of your work as a writer?
I think learning to change tone. I think that, like, the genre thing itself, I think that's less difficult. What's more difficult is changing from to write like an adult book to sort of a young adult or a middle grade book, which is what I did from my first to second book. So my first book, The Lazarus Tax, I was very much sort of gritty adult sci-fi. The Heart of Pangea, which was the follow-up, it was aimed at a younger audience. And yeah, trying to change to a different kind of language, a slightly simpler kind of language, resisting the urge to have kind of violence where it might feel natural otherwise. Yeah, that was tricky, and I think particularly because that book is a bit of an emotional roller coaster. There's a lot of comedy, but it ultimately follows the story of a young girl whose mum has terminal cancer. So you have that real balance of when to be funny and when to let it be sad because it should be, but not be a downer. So yeah, tone is really hard to nail with some books.
And yeah, tonal shifts are a challenge, and I think, well, just in general, trying to make sure that you are consistent with aiming for a particular audience with whatever you're writing, especially if you're changing genres or you're changing who you're directing the audience or who you're directing the book towards the audience. If you were to give any advice to other would-be authors out there who are, whether they're writing in the same genre or they're writing in different genres, or whether they've been around for a while or they're just getting started, what advice would you give them?
That is a tricky one because I think everyone is a little bit different in how they approach things. But I think it's a case of perseverance, really, because I think particularly your first book, when you've got nothing else already out there and you've never had any feedback on writing, you've never seen any sort of, you've never sold a book, you've never seen any sort of product of your labour. There are so many opportunities to give up.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's a long process. I think particularly your first, when you're still learning your trade, it can probably easily take a couple of years to write your first book. It took me, I think, about 2 years. So yeah, I think just stick at it. It's a long process, but you need to have a little bit of faith in the process. I think the second one, people often skip this step, particularly the first book. Beta readers are possibly the most important step. I think getting that little bit of feedback before it goes out there is massive. I didn't with my first book, and I then had to do a sort of second edition, sort of a year down the line, where I sort of closed a couple of plot holes and reworded a few things. Yeah, do that before it's released. It makes a huge difference.
Good to know. Good to know. So we're coming up to the end of the interview, Lindsay. How can people get a hold of you, and how can they connect and get copies of your work?
I am primarily on Facebook. That's where I have the sort of most following, but you will find me on Instagram and TikTok as well. You can email me at lindsaykinsellabooks@gmail.com if you want a sort of signed copy. And if you're just looking to pick up a copy, it's on, well, they're all on Amazon, Google Books, all the usual places. Waterstones, what's the big American one called again? Barnes and Noble, that's the one.
The big one.
Yeah, basically anywhere online you would normally buy a book, they'll be on there. And the Lazarus Taxa, and hopefully by the time this is out, also the Heart of Pangea will be available as audiobooks as well.
Awesome. Well, Lindsay, thank you for being on the show. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on new videos just like this one. A big thank you to my guest, Lindsay Kinsella. If you'd like to connect with him, get copies of his work, or become a channel supporter, you can find all of those links down in the video description. Make sure to join me next week for my next interview featuring Sarah Hickner, and keep on writing the right way.